So, I want to start by asking you a question, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Okay. What do a glass of like full-fat Coca-Cola with salted peanuts dropped inside, an ancient Roman charioteer who out-earned Michael Jordan, and some guy screaming in terror while staring at a completely blank wall all have in common?
I mean, that sounds like an incredibly surreal riddle. I honestly have no idea.
Right. It sounds like nonsense, but the underlying connection is actually profound once you see it, because they are all basically extreme examples of how our biology, our systems, and our minds are constantly being hacked.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see where we're going with this.
Yeah. So today we are doing a deep dive into a really sprawling, multi-hour conversation transcript from the Chris Williamson YouTube channel. And this material covers, everything from weird biological quirks to personalized genetic testing, all the way to high-stakes global finance.
Which sounds completely disconnected on the surface, right?
Yeah.
But underneath all those topics is this massive unified theme. We're really looking at the invisible architecture that drives human behavior.
Exactly. And our mission today for you, the listener, is to decode two specific pieces of that architecture. We're looking at supernormal stimuli and value capture.
Right.
The whole goal here is to equip you to spot these invisible scoreboards that are running your life and, more importantly, figure out how to hack them right back.
Yeah, and to really understand how our minds get hijacked, we kind of have to start with the physical body. We need to look at how easily our default evolutionary programming can just be tricked by the modern world.
Oh, totally. And let's unpack this with what might be the weirdest beverage combination imaginable, because the research kicks off with this viral phenomenon. You take a glass of full-fat Coke and you drop a handful of salted peanuts right into it.
Which just sounds terrible.
It sounds so gross, but people who try it swear it is ridiculously delicious, to the point where they refuse to drink cola any other way. And the chemistry perfectly explains why this works. So Coca-Cola has a pH of about 2.5.
Which is, what, roughly the same acidity as human stomach acid?
Yes, exactly. It is incredibly harsh on the palate. But evolutionarily, our tongues are designed to detect harsh, bitter, or highly acidic flavors as like a warning system, a warning for potential poisons.
Right, so we naturally want to reject it. But when you drop those salted peanuts in, the salt chemically suppresses the bitter taste receptors on your tongue.
It just turns them off.
Exactly. And because those receptors are blocked, your brain's perception of the sweetness in the cola is artificially amplified. You experience this massive surge in perceived sweetness without adding a single extra gram of sugar to the drink. It's basically an accidental chemical exploit.
It's totally wild. And this weird little beverage trick opens the door to this Nobel Prize-winning behavioral concept called supernormal stimuli.
Oh, I love this concept.
It's so fascinating because the scientist who coined this term didn't just study animals in sterile labs. He went out into the wild and tweaked a single variable to see what would happen. And he started with birds. Now, a bird's core evolutionary drive is to sit on its egg and keep it warm, right?
Yeah, I mean, that instinct represents millions of years of survival programming.
Right. So the scientists wondered, well, what happens if I give the bird a slightly bigger fake egg? And it turns out the bird prefers the bigger fake egg.
Which is already crazy.
Yeah. But then he pushed the experiment to the absolute limit. He made the fake egg bright pink and covered it in neon polka dots.
And the bird abandons its own real egg. It literally leaves its actual offspring to go sit on a giant, fake, neon polka dot egg.
It's insane.
It really is, because the bird's brain isn't capable of making a rational pros and cons list. It just has this biological trigger that equates larger and brighter with healthier offspring. So the fake egg hits that trigger 10 times harder than reality ever could.
Yeah.
And we see this elsewhere in nature, too, like those species of beetles that nearly went extinct because they were trying to mate with discarded shiny glass beer bottles.
Oh my God, the beer bottles, because the glass bottle was just a hyper-exaggerated, super shiny version of a female beetle's shell. It's this phenomenon known as Fisherian runaway, where a trait gets exaggerated to just a recursive, extreme degree. The beetles couldn't compute that the bottle wasn't real. It just ticked all their biological boxes so forcefully that they completely ignored actual mates.
And we can easily look at the bird or the beetle and feel this sense of superiority, right? Like, oh, silly animals. But there is a quote in the source material that just shatters that illusion completely.
What was it?
It goes, we laughed at the moth for confusing a lamp for the moon, yet here we are confusing a glowing screen for the real world.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, we are exactly like those beetles. We're just chasing the shiny glass bottle of social media or hyper-palatable food or extreme entertainment.
Yeah, look at how this applies to our diet through the concept of orification, which is the literal engineering of food textures. Because ancestrally, almost every food humans consumed had a single, uniform texture. Meat is one texture. Root vegetable is one texture.
Right. But then you look at modern processed food, like a cheesecake. If you give a hunter-gatherer a piece of cheesecake, it will completely short-circuit their brain
Oh, absolutely.
because it's this impossibly rare ancestral combination of high fat, high carbs, and high sugar. But it even goes beyond the macros, right? You have the crunchy texture of the base contrasting with the fluffy texture of the top. It is a completely manufactured supernormal stimulus designed to just hijack the dopamine receptors in our brains.
And it is terrifying to realize a piece of cheesecake can hack your dopamine.
Hmm.
But it is infinitely worse when you realize that exact same biological exploit is being used to hijack your broader life goals.
Exactly.
If our physical biology is that defenseless, our psychological choices are just as vulnerable.
Which brings us perfectly to the second major theme in the transcript, how this hijacking forces us to play games with warped scoreboards. It's a concept called value capture.
Right.
And there is a brilliant example used to illustrate this, pulled from a book called The Score, about a philosophy professor.
Yeah, this is a great story. So this professor enters the field of philosophy for the purest reason imaginable, right? He wants to tackle life's biggest, most meaningful questions. That is his core desire. But the moment he enters academia, the institutional system tells him that the actual game is publishing niche, peer-reviewed articles to rank higher in the academic hierarchy.
So his brain is presented with a choice between two goals. One is abstract, slow, and lacks any immediate feedback loop, right? Pondering the meaning of life.
Good luck measuring that.
Exactly. But the other goal is quantifiable, it's immediate, and it offers clear social status. Publishing a paper and getting cited.
And because the human brain craves immediate, measurable validation, he spends 2 years successfully winning this new game.
Yeah.
He publishes the papers, he climbs the ranks, but at the end of it, he realizes he is completely miserable. The game dictated his identity. It captured his values.
Yeah.
The system handed him a metric that was simplified and easy to digest, and before long, that metric entirely replaced his original pursuit.
It's exactly like a YouTuber who starts making videos simply to share a passion for woodworking, let's say. And within a year, they're only making clickbait content to please the algorithm and get millions of views. The supernormal stimulus of the view count captures their original value.
And this phenomenon scales up into a highly destructive cognitive bias called the McNamara fallacy, named after Robert McNamara, the U.S. Secretary of Defense during the Vietnam War.
Right.
McNamara was completely absurd with metrics. The fallacy is the mistake of making decisions based solely on quantitative metrics, things you can count, while entirely ignoring qualitative, unmeasurable factors.
So in the context of the Vietnam War, McNamara used enemy body counts as the sole objective measure of success. If the number went up, the spreadsheet said the military was winning.
Exactly. By hyper-focusing on that one measurable metric, he ignored the overall morale, the soul of the conflict, and the deeply complex political realities on the ground. Basically, all the unquantifiable things that actually determine the outcome of the war.
Right.
We intend to measure what matters, but instead what we can measure ends up mattering.
Okay, but wait, let me push back on this slightly, because aren't metrics fundamentally necessary?
Sure.
If we don't have a scoreboard, how do we know if we are actually making progress or just like wandering aimlessly? I mean, if I want to lose weight, I have to step on a scale. If I want to run a profitable business, I have to look at revenue.
Oh, absolutely. Metrics themselves are totally necessary.
Mm-hmm.
The danger lies in accepting the default metric that a system hands to you, especially when that default metric is a supernormal stimulus designed to keep you trapped in their game. So the solution isn't to abandon scoreboards entirely. The solution is to intentionally build a harder, more meaningful metric.
Ah, okay.
Right.
The analysis points to content creators and entrepreneurs like Alex Hormozy and James Smith as prime examples of this because, by default, the YouTube algorithm tells creators to optimize for maximum viewership. That is the shiny glass bottle.
Right.
But Hormozy realized that millions of views on a generic video didn't actually serve his real goal, which was identifying and connecting with serious business operators.
So he deliberately designed a high-friction metric. Instead of optimizing for views, he optimized for selling a 99-cent business book. He knew that only a highly engaged, targeted audience member would actually pull out their credit card, spend $1, and read a book on business strategy.
He intentionally filtered out the casual scrollers.
Exactly.
And James Smith does something similar by tracking a very specific link that only his true target demographic will click. Even if it means his video only gets 20,000 views instead of 500,000, they totally bypassed the vanity metric and built a customized scoreboard that actually aligned with their values.
And it works. But, when you take that reliance on the wrong metrics and scale it up to a global level, objective reality just shatters. When the default dashboard you are looking at is flawed, the only way to find the truth is to step away from the screen and go out into the physical world.
Yeah, and there is a fantastic story in the material about a researcher known only as Analyst Number 3.
Oh, this is wild.
It is. So there was a period when global media and tracking data were all screaming that the Strait of Hormuz, which is this massive vital artery for global oil, was blocked. The digital dashboard said the strait was closed, and because of this single metric, global oil prices were panicking and going completely parabolic.
Right, but an intelligence and research firm called Citrini needed to know the actual truth. So analyst number 3 decides to reject the digital metric entirely. According to his own field blog, he flew to Oman, went downstairs in his hotel in his pajamas and slippers to quietly slip past local intelligence agents and just headed for the coast.
Wait, in pajamas and slippers?
Yeah, pajamas and slippers.
That is amazing. And he packed a briefcase with nicotine pouches, Cuban cigars, and a pair of Meta recording glasses. He bribed a local guy to take him out onto the water in a small paddle boat, and he manually counted the oil tankers going through the strait with his own eyes.
He completely bypassed the digital illusion. And he discovered the strait wasn't closed at all. The cargo ships were still moving through. They were simply turning off their digital tracking devices to quietly pay a toll and avoid political heat.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, by refusing to look at the easy, measurable data on a screen and actively seeking the unmeasurable, on-the-ground truth, he figured out what was actually happening while the rest of the financial world was in a blind panic.
He refused to look at the shadows on the cave wall and just walked outside.
Exactly.
But what happens when an entire market refuses to look outside? We get situations like the Allbirds pivot. So Allbirds was a company famous for making comfortable wool shoes, right? But they were struggling immensely, their stock was crashing, and their market cap had dwindled to about $21 million. So they sold off their shoe assets, changed their name, and put out a press release claiming they were now an AI company buying up GPUs.
And the market, completely blinded by the supernormal stimulus of the phrase artificial intelligence, reacted instantly. In a single day, their stock soared 582%.
What?
Yeah, jumping from a $21 million market cap to $148 million.
They just fed the market the shiny glass bottle it wanted to see. It is Fisherian runaway applied directly to Wall Street.
It really is. And this reliance on rigid snapshot metrics can have devastating permanent consequences. Look at the tragic irony of the FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried bankruptcy. When that crypto exchange collapsed, the bankruptcy courts took over. And bankruptcy processes operate on incredibly strict, rigid metrics. They are legally required to evaluate and liquidate assets based on the prices at the exact time of the collapse.
So they are forced to measure what is measurable right that second, entirely ignoring any future potential.
Exactly. And because of that rule, the process forced a rapid, early sell-off of FTX's holdings into a panic market at a massive discount. Early on, Sam Bankman-Fried had made an investment in an artificial intelligence company called Anthropic.
Right. Because the bankruptcy forced the sale of these assets early, the victims were locked out of the subsequent AI boom. If the bankruptcy estate had simply been able to hold on to that Anthropic position, which is now valued at roughly $60 billion, it could have easily paid back everyone who lost money, potentially multiple times over.
That is heartbreaking. They relied on the snapshot metric of the collapse, and it cost the victims everything. So, if the world is constantly throwing fake eggs at you, forcing you to play with warped scoreboards and using snapshot metrics to hide the truth, how do you build a defense? How do you actually take back control of your own baseline?
Well, you have to completely reject the concept of the average. You have to stop letting external generalized metrics dictate your internal reality. The material highlights a classic historical example that perfectly illustrates why relying on averages is a structural failure. It's the 1950s U.S. Air Force study. Oh, this is so telling. The Air Force was trying to design the perfect cockpit for their fighter jets. So they measured 600 pilots, taking 12 different physical measurements from each man, arm length, leg length, chest width, and so on. They aggregated all that data to build a cockpit perfectly designed for the statistically average pilot.
But when they actually built this statistically perfect average cockpit and tested it, it fit exactly 0 of the 600 pilots. Not a single person was average across all 12 measurements. It was a complete disaster.
0 pilots.
0. Because averages are statistical ghosts. They do not exist in reality. The military quickly realized they didn't need average cockpits. They needed customized, adjustable cockpits.
And that exact philosophy is finally reaching our own biology. For decades, we have relied on broad, average studies to tell us what vitamins to take, what diet to follow, or how much to sleep. But human biology isn't average. Modern personalized genetic testing, like the Intel xDNA tests mentioned in the transcript, allows you to map out your specific biological cockpit.
Yeah, when you take one of these deep dive tests, you get a blueprint for how your specific body operates. For example, you might discover you have a specific variant of the KOMT gene. This gene dictates how quickly your brain clears dopamine.
Right.
If you clear dopamine very slowly, you possess an incredible capacity for intense, locked-in focus. You can work on a complex problem for hours.
But the trade-off is that your nervous system is easily overloaded. You don't handle chaotic environments or sudden context switching well, and you are highly prone to stress. Or, on a nutritional level, you might find out that genetically you are in the bottom 10% of the population for magnesium absorption.
Which means reading a generic health clog that advises taking 200 milligrams of magnesium because studies say it works for the average person is entirely useless to you. Knowing your genetic baseline gives you the data required to stop trying to fit into the average cockpit. You can actually customize your workflow, your diet, and your environment to the specific biological game you are equipped to win.
But before you can even figure out what your customized biology needs, you have to escape the noise. You have to undergo an extreme baseline reset. There's this fascinating experiment discussed where a writer decided to attempt an ancient Eastern practice, staring at a completely blank wall for an hour.
Just an hour.
Just an hour, nothing else, no phone, no music, no meditation mantra, just open eyes, facing a wall.
It sounds incredibly mundane. But when modern individuals attempt this, many of them experience profound psychological distress. Our modern baseline for stimulation is so unnaturally high. I mean, we are constantly bombarded by supernormal stimuli from the moment we wake up that the total absence of it feels agonizing. People will literally burst into tears or start screaming after just 20 minutes.
Because their brains are going through acute physical withdrawal from the shiny glass bottles. The silence is terrifying because it strips away all the external scoreboards and forces them to confront their own undistracted minds.
But pushing through that discomfort is how you reset your baseline. And when you manage to do that, you reach a state described beautifully by Blake McCoskey, the founder of Thomas Shoes. He said, "A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and recreation. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever he is doing and leaves others to determine if he is working or playing."
Man, that is so good. When you stop playing for the wrong scoreboard and you reject the supernormal stimuli designed to fracture your attention, life stops feeling compartmentalized. It stops feeling like a series of stressful obligations broken up by frantic dopamine hits. It just becomes unified.
Because you are finally measuring what actually matters to your specific life rather than what is easiest for the surrounding system to count.
Absolutely. So let's distill all of this down for you, the listener. First, you have to be actively vigilant about supernormal stimuli. Whether it is the hyper-engineered texture of processed food or the infinite, algorithmically curated scroll of a glowing screen, recognize when your evolutionary biology is being exploited.
Second, audit your life for the McNamara fallacy. Do not fall into the trap of value capture. Just because something is easy to measure, like a bank account balance, a follower count, or a job title, does not mean it is the only metric that matters. Never let a simplified scoreboard dictate your complex identity.
Third, when the digital dashboard doesn't make sense, emulate analyst number 3. Bypass the screen, go out into the physical world, and seek the unmeasurable truth.
And finally, remember the 1950s Air Force pilots. The average human is a statistical myth. Stop trying to squeeze yourself into a life designed for an average person and start building a customized cockpit for your unique biology and values.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, building on this idea of value capture. We've talked about academics chasing citations and content creators chasing views. But think about how this applies to one of the most fundamental human desires: Finding a life partner. We all start with the abstract, deeply meaningful goal of finding love and connection, but then we download a dating app.
And the app hands us a completely new scoreboard.
Exactly. Suddenly, the goal isn't connection anymore. The goal is optimizing a profile to maximize the number of matches. We start swiping based on a split-second evaluation of a photo, which is a pure, supernormal stimulus, ignoring all the unmeasurable qualitative factors that actually make a relationship work. We let an algorithm capture our most intimate values, reducing human beings to a measurable body count of likes and swipes. If we are willing to let a screen hack something as profound as love, we have to ask ourselves, what other parts of our lives have we quietly surrendered to the scoreboard?